We basically take the asset, we lock it in, we mint a representation of that asset. Those are XRP users, there's Doge users, sometimes other users. They just told no, like they want to come to one front end, like a centralized sex experience. They'd be like, hey, I want to provide liquidity, say some market on Ethereum. This is what I'm going to get. This is the rate I'm getting. This is the risk I'm taking. And just want to provide that, right? So that's the goal. Now we actually have the fundamental, like the tech is there just to be able to use and kind of like combine the Legos pieces together to deliver this experience that didn't exist.
I'm here with Altan Tutar, CEO and co-founder of Nuffle Labs. How's it going, man?
Good. How about yourself?
Great. Yeah, thanks for joining. So we're going to dive deep into Nuffle today, understanding where it fits in the restaking narrative, and also understand some of the crypto economic kind of intricacies of Nuffle, and also the technical bits, specifically how it leverages near DA and Eigen. But first, before we get started, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe, hit the like button and notification bell to get notified when new episodes drop every week, and drop me a follow on Twitter at Sev 3.0. So let's start with the foundation for why Nuffle exists. Why did you guys build this, and where does it fit in the broader restaking narrative?
Yeah, I can give an intro to myself and how we started. I'm Altan, one of the founders of Nuffle. I grew up in Turkey, so that's how I started. That's how I got it really interested in crypto. As you guys might know, like inflation has been pretty bad over there since 2013, 2014. Like we saw Turkish lira devalue a lot, and you see that a lot of people use crypto as a means to hold their wealth. And it's actually one of the biggest markets for Binance and others to kind of buy Bitcoin. But anyway, I studied computer science and mathematics undergrad, and then did my master's in AI, which was doing a lot of robotics work. So I was pretty interested in doing simulation, where if you can train a robot in simulation and take that to the real world. Did a sort of a research role at Imperial College London. And that was my into sort of crypto, because when you look at crypto, everything is sort of a simulation, right? Everything is, it's virtual money. It's all about incentives. And I really love that. So that's how I got to be where I am. I was hacking on Near, and Near Foundation hired me in 2022. I met all my co-founders at Near, where Ilya basically put a task force in back in August and said, look, like there's this interesting thing coming up with the modular stack. What can we build? And that's how we started with Near DA, but quickly realized like the fundamentals we're building is something interesting. So we built a fast finality layer on top that allows you to message pass pretty fast across different chains. And I really like this sort of thinking of like verticalizing the stack, right? So DAs was like something to store your sort of like sequences of information pretty cheap. And then we built a fast finality layer to be able to message pass pretty quickly. And one of the use cases that we saw that was immediate for us was, hey, I'm sitting on Near, and I would want to like contribute to Eigenlayer's almost like supply side. How do I do that? It's traditionally been that you need to get out of Near, swap to ETH somehow, and then go to ETH, claim your ETH, and then go stake that. So our mission has changed to be more, it's a native staking solution where depends on where you set Ethereum L1, L2, or Near Solana, doesn't really matter what blockchain you're on. I want people to be able to stake to first Eigenlayer and being able to earn rewards directly from their own chain without even selling the token, right? That's like the phase one of what we're building. But the infra is very flexible in a sense that you can actually build, like you can take your Near, provide it to a lending platform on Morpho. You can take that, provide, become an LP into a pool on Solana. So seeing this that as assets need to do more, and our infrastructure allows to do that.
Okay, so let's come back to the main use case here, so the foundational use case. So Nuffle will allow you to take your native assets, like let's say Doge or XRP or any assets on any blockchain. Those assets probably don't have really good bridging infrastructure or DeFi. If you look at some of the top 20 assets, they're basically sort of dinosaur chains, right? Like these are assets that are mostly traded on sexes. A lot of the conversation recently has been around like, how do we get those assets? How do we get that liquidity into DeFi? Because there's a ton of, there's like hundreds of billions of dollars worth of liquidity there, just kind of dormant. How do we get those assets into DeFi, and how do we get those holders of those assets to be able to utilize these assets in other ecosystems where DeFi is more developed, more mature? And so Nuffle allows you to kind of stake those assets, and then they appear as liquid staked assets on some other chain. Is that kind of the high level?
Yeah, we basically take the asset, we lock it in, we mint a representation of that asset. Ideally, there's two ways to think about this, right? For the user, there's an advanced portion, which is like you actually want to take the asset on the other chain, want to do other things. But I want way simpler because the XRP users, there's Doge users, sometimes other users, they just don't know. Like they want to come to one front end, like a centralized sex experience. They'd be like, hey, I want to provide liquidity, say, some market on Ethereum, let that be Morpho. This is what I'm going to get. This is the rate I'm getting. This is the risk I'm taking. And just want to provide that, right? So that's the goal. And it's quite interesting, right? You mentioned XRP. XRP has done really well in terms of the market cap, but the XRP is like utilized around 0.08%. So utilization rate is very simple. Like you take the market cap of the asset and then you take the TVL, you divide TVL by market cap. It's not the greatest metric out there, but it gives you some sort of understanding of like how the asset is being used. So pretty excited about that, right? Like the tech wasn't there in the last cycle when layer 0 was just coming around, like wormhole was coming around. And now we actually have the fundamental, like the tech is there just to be able to use and kind of like combine the Legos pieces together to deliver this experience that didn't exist. And a lot of this traditionally has been, like swapping an asset, right? You go to Portal, you swap, let's say, near to Solana, Solana's a near, but I want to take one step further where you're sitting on that chain near, you want to provide liquidity to Morpho, you should be able to just come into a front end and do that. So that's the mission. And yeah, team's quite excited about it. We've been working this for a while. Staking is the way to kind of start the first sort of a use case, but it goes way beyond staking.
Yeah, so I guess like if we take a step back here, the way people have done this typically before for chains where there are solid bridges between the two chains is you bridge that asset into the other chain. So you might bridge Solana into Ethereum using Wormhole, and then you have some Wormhole representation of Solana over on ETH. You have to take the bridge risk there, but then you have that representation of Solana on ETH, and you can participate in DeFi. You might do the opposite, right? You might bring ETH into Solana. How is this different? How is this like fundamentally different than just bridging? And what does this stateless validation really provide in addition to, in terms of security guarantees? Like, how is it better than just bridging?
Yeah, so bridging has traditionally been that you have to give the burn and mint rights to bridge, right? So bridge has the control over the token supply. The way we're trying to do it is pretty much non-custodial. So you sit on the chain, you lock the chain. So you have pretty much a receipt token that if something happens to the bridge, you can go back to both sends and they claim the tokens back. So we have a recovery mechanism if something happens to the bridge. So that's pretty much different. And the bridges mainly has been, I think it's a UI experience, like the product experience has been the problem. And totally talked about it before too, is that, all the technology is there. It's just that we, as an industry, we have been always like, I have this bridge front end, I have this bridge front end, I have this bridge front end. Like, the technology has been there. So I think we have now the technology where you can just use message passing, right? And then basically lock and mint a token on the other side, and then user controls the whole thing. That's the difference from bridging. One, it's not custodial. Two is pretty much the UX. I would want people to come to one front end and being able to stake. It becomes like an earning app, right? Like I want people to earn rather than go into Binance, earning earning there. You can just come and earn on chain. And you've been seeing this examples of this, with Infinex, with all the other sort of DEX, but looking like sex products. Our goal is to become like this earning product that people come in and contribute their assets to anywhere, pretty much.
Right. And so where did the staking rewards come from? I mean, because like typically we think about staking, you're locking tokens in order to secure a chain. If you're moving, say like near, if you want to provide near in a lightning pool on Morpho, for instance, you're not actually staking the token, right? I mean, you're kind of like locking it in some form. And so where does that yield come from? And
yeah, there's a couple of ways to think about it. So when I say staked, I'm referring to Eigenlayer staking. So in that case, the great thing about Altal ones is that there's base yield, right? So when you stake, let's say in the future with us at Near, you can get the base reward and other rewards that come from AVSs, just like typical on in Ethereum. So we provide the same mechanism for Near, right? Instead of going to a native restaking market on Near, there's been a couple, but there's not been that much adoption. You can actually go to Eigenlayer where there's like 80 to 100 like AVSs that can eventually pay rewards. That's number one. So you're getting the base reward and then getting Eigenlayer rewards. So that's stake from anywhere. And you can replicate this for any L1 pretty much, as long as you have an LRT partner that can go there with you. The other product, which is like taking Near, but then you have to build a marketplace where people want to borrow Near or XRP and create that pools on Morpho, which people started doing, like LBTC is there now. These assets start to get accepted. It's the same mechanism. So user has to pick, right? User has to either be like, I'm staking my Near and this is what I'm earning, and I'm getting additional yield from other protocols, which is emissions, or I'm going to go basically Morpho, then USDC pool, then as long as there's demand for it, there would be like the rate for it, and then therefore I'll be earning yield. So that, or maybe you're like remote LPing, which is quite interesting, right? Where if everything goes on chain and everybody trades on chain, then like Hyperliquid is a great example. They started with the PrepDex, now they go on spot. Then you have the opportunity where you sit actually on Near. I want to provide liquidity to Hyperliquid. I just stay there, and that's another like basically an option in the product that you can say, hey, I'm providing liquidity to LP pool. Obviously, there's impermanent loss, just like with everything, but at least I'm contributing my Near, and I'm not selling my Near. Actually, I'm like holding the asset from the native chain by contributing to the demand of Hyperliquid, say.
Interesting. Okay. Can you explain like the role of Eigenlayer here and why you chose Eigenlayer, and why not some other restaking protocol? Or is there an opportunity to have like multiple restaking protocols? What would be the benefit of that?
Yeah, Eigenlayer has been, so when we started on Near, it was almost, there was the first restaking platform, and we wanted to build something for rollups. It was the only place to do it at the time. It was like we were one of the early builders on Eigenlayer. And the great thing about this is like traditionally people wanted to like, Wormhole, for example, has the Guardian network, which is they bootstrapped over time. There's this always problem of bootstrapping your own validators. Like Cosmos had this problem, right? You spun up a new chain. Now you have to find operators for yourself. Eigenlayer allowed us to do pretty much come in early and bootstrap the network, quote unquote, from existing operators of Eigenlayer, which was really great for us. And the great thing about, because we're operating in different blockchains, you can actually use Eigenlayer to do very, very optimistic, like hyper optimistic message passing with the cryptoeconomic security that you get. Instead of like waiting 15 to 20 minutes in some message passing protocols, you can do this in 2 to 3 seconds, and it's perfect for the user experience that we're creating on the product. So we're using it for our case. Yeah, that's been pretty much it. So cryptoeconomic security allows us to do things faster, obviously with Eigenlayer, which is quite exciting for us, right? And then we can also, there's cool things around, like there's the layer 0 DVN, there's the Wormhole is building something called modular verifiers. You can just plug in for networks that Wormhole doesn't go. You can just plug your validatory set, which is like 20 to 40 operators now. You can grow it later, and you can just go there and you're the case. So you're kind of the infra provider going to these new chains that maybe Wormhole hasn't integrated yet. So that's the opportunity.
With Eigenlayer, the number of assets that are available for restaking is somewhat limited, right? If I take the example of Symbiotic, you have just like a much larger scope of assets that can be utilized in restaking. If you take Babylon, right, you have like the entire Bitcoin ecosystem. Where does that leave Nuffle in terms of being able to accommodate for like a large number of assets?
Yeah, we can support a lot of the assets that Eigenlayer hasn't traditionally supported. So all L1s and L2s, as long as we can create an ERC20 version on Ethereum L1, it's not like your traditional wrapped token, because your wrapped token, you can take your wrapped token and take it elsewhere. Like you can trade it on Uniswap, you can do other things. The mirror version we create can only go to Eigenlayer. So it's almost like you're enshrining Near liquidity directly from the Near blockchain to Eigenlayer. So that has special properties. So we're pretty much the partner to expand the asset selection on Eigenlayer that has not been traditionally available to the market. And there's been interest to alternative assets, like Bitcoin has been one, even Near for old AI. AVS's Near has been interesting. There's obviously, people want to sometimes take USDC. It's still hard in a very sort of 4% interest rate environment to kind of justify that. But you can talk, we launched virtual staking. So there's been interest for that. We got 15 to 20 million committed from the day one to stake. So like our goal is to just basically any asset could be able to tap into a shared security market pretty much.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And so, yeah, coming back to maybe the near DA aspect, you talked earlier that you guys came out of the near ecosystem. I'm not super familiar with near DA, so like I know Celestia fairly well, like Eigenlayer. So, what's the difference? How does near DA stand out? And yeah, how should people be thinking about like near DA's role within Nuffle?
Yeah, it's a project that we use currently internally. There are still a couple of rollups that are using it, but mainly it is using Near's own data availability. So we built that solution over at Near. We launched that well in Near in 30 days. It was an amazing experience because the team was like bonded in that experience of like we need to launch something pretty fast. It has a couple of rollups on it, but it's not currently something that we advertise. It's part of our stack that it enables to uh, part of AVS that stores pretty cheap data and in a decentralized manner, but it's literally just Near's own DA.
And how is it different from Celestia? Like,
Yeah, it uses sharding. So it has 6 different shards. Every shard can get a bunch of throughput. And it's quite exciting because you can near scales infinitely with shards. And the main thing is like we hacked near protocol to store the blobs at a certain, like 72 hours period. That gets it very cheap. Even if you were to store something on a smart contract, that would be more expensive than what we do. But it's something like it's a solution that we provided for the Ethereum melters at the time. Now we're using that to store any sort of blockchain sequence on Near.
okay. So a few rollups are using it, but I mean, is there like an active kind of business development function within Near to grow the usage of Near DA?
So we were the ones. The couple of things that are a bit critical to say, it's a very bad business model. So
What?
it is very cheap. Yeah, it's very cheap. It doesn't help. Like, you also don't control the rollup itself because you're just basically storing data. So the reason why we internalize a product rather than selling is, well, it's just, like it's not like a like Dex or like Dex experience where there's trading happening. There's a lot of like, where the yield comes from, right? In a DEX, right? Because people just want to buy and sell tokens. We didn't see it that way. It was a very we love the tech on Near when we're building it. It was like, this is an amazing solution we can build. But when we realized we're like, this is just not going to sustain the business value, we've decided that we'll just use it internally in our product pretty much.
Okay, got it. So like you guys are sort of the only ones that are using it to this extent, right? Like more or less.
There is still products using it, like RSS3 is using it on the in their rollup. There's a couple on the testnet, but we're not like actively doing business development for it.
Okay. And do you have any other kind of touch points with Near, like the Near mainnet?
Yeah. We find chain signatures pretty exciting. So especially now that the throughput has been increased, it is a decentralized MPC network that we can utilize to do all the things that I mentioned before, right? It's Doge, XRP, all these assets. Like traditionally bridges find it pretty hard to go. We can just take them and then we can use them on Near and then send message pass through all the different chains. So that's pretty exciting. And we're quite excited to kind of contribute there. But that's the main Near stack we're using is the chain signatures. And obviously the AVS uses Near DA. So pretty much like taking Near, modularizing it a little bit because there's good parts about Near. That's why I joined the space. And then opening that up and sort of verticalizing it and then building a product on top is something that something that excites the team.
Okay, so you're using this MPC functionality. I did an episode with Ilya just a little while back where we talked a lot about this and also the AI component. Is this something that you guys are also looking forward to and perhaps implementing within Nuffle, like this kind of AI component?
Yeah, the first thing we launched is obviously virtual staking, and that can contribute to their stack, right? The game stack, which we're quite excited about. The second thing is we've been internally thinking about this product and have an ecosystem partner building it soon that we'll probably announce in March, is that you can take stables from anywhere and let's say put an AI strategy manager, just like in Morpho, and then find the best yield for the basically could be like a traditional AI model, not an LLM, because LLMs are very probabilistic in a sense. But the traditional model, like regression models, they're almost like they're not probabilistic, they're deterministic. So pick a strategy manager and sort of divert the stablecoin to any market that you get the best yields. Do the rebalancing with an AI model is something super interesting because we can use the same info we're building. Say you have a stablecoin in Solana, say you have stablecoin Base, take all these deposits and find the best yields and rebalance across different chains. So that's one of the ecosystem projects we're building that is quite exciting. Yeah, also we have an internal testnet product that one of actually external engineer built it, and then we hired him, which was quite interesting. He was contributing on an open source, and he was like killing it. And we are like, let's just hire this guy. He's been amazing, which allows you to sort of bet on AI agents from any chain. So you can sit on like Near, you can sit on Base. You just be like, this is going to be the guy that's going to win the debate, and you can you can basically bet on the agent. So those are the ones that we're working. It's part of the stack, obviously, right? Because if you're building a multi-chain vault system with the message passing, there would be some AI use cases, obviously.
So I'd like to talk about this fast finality layer and where it sits in the stack, experience improvements people will see from this fast finality layer.
Yeah, so it is a generalized message passing. We have our own validator set, obviously, and it allows you to do sort of 2 to 3 second message passing across different chains. It is an experience that is going to allow you pretty much, if you're an XRP, you took your XRP, you're going to mint, like we're going to mint the XRP on the back end in, let's say, Base, and then you'll get that in like 3 to 4 seconds finality, which is quite exciting. Like it's not been available before. It's obviously through Near. So it sits almost like, if you think about the stack, there's vaults everywhere. It's almost like boring vaults, if you've seen them before, which was the Vedai guys built it. But then you can take that and change it to be a multi-chain vault structure. You can get deposits from different EVM chains. Also use Near chain signatures to get XRP, Doge, all the other assets. On top of that, you can just message pass across different chains. And that's where you get the sort of the lock and mint functionality. And on the front end, the users just going to see like, hey, I'm going to put XRP into this vault, and I'm going to contribute to Morpho. So that comes from the whole stack of Nuffle infra, pretty much.
And what's the integration lift for DeFi protocols that want to onboard these Nuffle assets? So like say like Nuffle XRP, or what are you calling these Nuffle assets? Is like Nuff and then the asset name? What do you call it?
Let's call it for Nuff XRP now. But let's say Nuff XRP goes to lending markets.
Right. So like, is it permissionless to onboard these assets? Can anybody create these assets? So like if I'm like, a big holder of, I don't know, Cardano, can I just like spin up a Nuffle wrapped version of this over on Ethereum and start building vaults over on Morpho, or does it require some intervention from Nuffle?
It's a good question. So at the beginning, we'll pretty much build it ourselves. Just like when you're building a platform, you want to obviously showcase it. So we'll probably focus on one asset and do that really well, because you don't want to go to Morpho, or you don't want to go to a deep liquidity marketplace where you don't have deep liquidity for people to kind of borrow and lend, right? So we're going to focus on that. But ideally, people can just come in, use our vaults, spin up like a new product, and you can build like Cardano, let's say, as long as we built the railways to do that, because there needs to be some work needs to be done on chain signature side. But on the other side, it's quite easy. Like DeFi protocols, just like accepting the ERC20 on EVM, which ERC20, actually EVM is an amazing interoperability machine, right? If you think about it, like all these chains, you've done a smart contract, boring vaults work everywhere. You can just like deposit it there. And then as long as you deposit a boring vault, it just works out of the box with all these, like starting from Pendle to Morpho, the big DeFi protocols. So DeFi protocols is fine. Permissionless ones, we can just go create them. There's permission ones, obviously, that require sometimes DAO votes, like Aave. But like the way people do it is, you go to Morpho, you prove the use case, and then Aave opens up a market after that, right? So that's what we want to work with, one asset only and with large liquidity. But yeah, so on the DeFi side, it's pretty easy. On the Cardano side, obviously, we need to build a railroad to do that, but it's not that complicated to do that either.
Okay. Yeah. So who are the different actors here in the system and what are their roles from the Nuffle chain itself all the way to like the contracts on the individual chains being deploying those assets and like how are these different actors participating? I guess like take me through a user flow, and where the participants are kind of touching the assets.
So users, let's say traditional users, they'll just see the front end. They'll just deploy, let's say, XRP into a front end and say, hey, I want this to go to Morpho. Our infra is being used pretty much to do the whole sort of locking and minting. And once you go to obviously lending protocol, there's always a strategist like MEV Capital, 7Cs that just comes in and creates a strategy for you and pretty much does the whole work and then returns you the yield, right? So that's one. And that's pretty much it. So strategies, users, and Nuffle doing this. I also tend to think
Yeah,
about
there's also the validators of the network, right? So there's
yeah,
the validators of the Nuffle network.
yeah,
I guess you also have the validators of the near which is the NPC that's securing the assets,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. And then there's also if you want to take a step back and try to figure out how this looks like, it actually is a three-sided marketplace. So like the users and pretty much I'm going to say like AI agents that are holding crypto assets. That's number one, because they benefit from just earning more yield from their tokens that they couldn't before. There's obviously the like L1 tokens or L2 chains, L2 basic chains. Their assets were able to use on different chains, so you can unlock them. And then the DeFi protocols pretty much get more liquidity that they weren't able to get before, which is like XRP, Doge, all these assets that are sitting in pretty much large market cap. So that's how I want to kind of phrase it, like almost a three-sided marketplace.
Okay. Interesting. I guess like in terms of the risk, right? So, where does a user have to consider risk of the assets that they're holding? Is the risk the same across all of the different assets, or are there different risk profiles? And what is imposing that risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. So staking currently, since flashing is not live yet fully in Eigenlayer, so it's pretty much like smart contract risk at this point.
Yeah.
So you're getting almost like emissions. So the risk you're taking on the other side is obviously, well, you're trusting our operators that they will do the work that they'll do. That's one. And then I guess if you're using if you're XRP or Doge, you're trusting sort of a party, like decentralized party, to basically say that there's certain things happen on that chain. I'm going to pass that to the other chain. Um, so those are the risks you're taking, and obviously smart contract risk, right? Like if something happens on Morpho, you are taking the smart contract risk. So that's pretty much it. Like there's a couple of risks you're taking, but it's still in my mind way better than just trusting one party, like an FTX or something that happened before with the assets than like trusting a bunch of other decentralized parties.
Yeah, no, I guess I think that's true. Taking a step back here, I think there's one thing that can be said, which is still true in crypto, is that we don't yet have really seamless experience that can rival centralized exchanges. We don't have, I think there's sort of three things that are missing, or maybe that some chains have, but none of them have all of it, right? So there's the decentralization/censorship resistance, there's the user experience, and then there's the performance. Typically, like products will have two of those, but we haven't seen one that really has all three. And I would add maybe that user experience also includes onboarding and the ability for users to very quickly get access to assets. That's a whole other problem with KYC and compliance and regulation that I'm not convinced we're going to get through unless there's a pullback on that. Like, where do you see the end game in terms of being able to rival centralized assets, and how far do you think we are from that, and what role does Nuffle play here?
Yeah, so no KYC is something interesting, right? Because it's all the on-chain products almost have no KYC. Like if you're buying something on Uniswap, the only problem there is the off-ramp, on-ramps that are pretty hard to
Exactly.
break.
Yeah.
That are pretty hard to break, and it's something that like whole industry is working on. And every founder I talk to is like, look, like I'm gonna create this best experience, but I have this on-ramp problem that is really hard for me to solve. I think there'll be products that are like going to be way easier to do that. Like I haven't found a better solution than like MoonPay or something that like but that is like the US is more strict on these things usually. Like there's certain products I saw elsewhere that didn't require KYC going even on chain from other places. So I like that is obviously maybe I'm optimistic about like certain things improving, but also like I understand the KYC perspective of like if something is going on with the chain, right? If somebody money laundering, it's easier to catch them with KYC than no KYC, right? That's the one thing. Um, but I once you get in there, so let's take the off-ramp, on-ramp experience. Once you get in there, it should be pretty simple. Like trading, I think a lot of people are taking really good steps. For example, Infinex Switch is a great product. If you've tried it before, you can just go from any chain to any chain in like a couple of seconds with intents at the background. That also uses chain signatures for non-smart contract chains. There's Particle X, a Universal X by Particle Network that has done a great job. I've traded a little bit there too, which was a great experience to buy anything from Solana to base. But what I want to center us is like the earning side, right? I want to make sure that if you're in any chain, you should be able to have access to earning opportunities elsewhere. Obviously, knowing the risk, right? Knowing the risk of like what Eigenlayer provides you, what Morpho provides you, what, and let's say, Alting into a pool on Solana provides you. So I want to be able to make sure that you don't do that. You don't take the step of like 2-3 different front ends. You just come to our front end and being able to provide liquidity in one go with something similar to like almost an earned product on a centralized exchange, done sort of a bit more depth than what centralized exchanges offer.
Yeah, I think that coming back to the KYC, I feel like crypto becoming compliant is crypto playing someone else's game. We're playing traditional finance's game. KYC and compliance was invented by TradFi because they didn't have. Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. So one, the technology is very hard to get like the complete state, right? So it's hard to get the complete state of the system in traditional finance because everything is locked away in databases. Whereas blockchains have everything's online, like everything's public, right? Like you don't need special access or special permission to get access to that information. So that in itself is, I think, a reason or an argument for there to be less compliance on blockchains. And the other thing is that there is a lot of hypocrisy in traditional finance where we have organizations like the FATF that are enforcing KYC and compliance, and also to some extent, forcing countries to become compliant lest they have a worse compliance rating and therefore maybe have worse rates on loans, etc. But basically, on the other side of that, you have banks like TD in Canada or HSBC that are committing massive fraud and money laundering at a scale that can just simply not be compared in cryptos. I do think it is adversarial, and I think as an industry we need to figure out ways to make sure that there isn't rampant crime on the infrastructure that we're building, but at the same time, like doing KYC is helping no one and it's stopping basically no crime.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably costing more than the crime it's meant to stop. So,
well, it's kind of cash, right? People do crime with cash, but is cash bad? No. And do you have to get KYC to get cash? Probably not, right? Like that's the that's interesting as well.
I mean,
yeah.
you
But it's
don't,
better
but
than cash actually.
yeah, but in
Because
Europe, for instance, like you can't pay cash transactions above a certain amount are illegal, and that I think puts us sets us on a path that I think that is not desirable, where effectively the financial system becomes privatized or at least the use of money becomes privatized, because then at any time you want to make a transaction that's more than $1,000, or maybe at some point even less, you are constrained to use a private actor's system. You're constrained to use a bank effectively. And I think that crypto is meant to be the antidote to that, but we are as an industry trying to become compliant, trying to become regulated. And in the long-term view, if we're going down the route of potential for surveillance, etc., it doesn't set us in the right trajectory, and certainly not within the ethos of the original idea for crypto.
especially like if let's say I'm buying an asset on Base, if it's backed by like Coinbase, like what's the point of that? Like I'd rather buy the asset directly with that decentralized party, right? But I don't know the answer to the KYC question. Like it's probably some sort of lobbying, some sort of like teaching people in power to move the needle. It is though, maybe ZK Tech or some of the technology that we have could be used to kind of improve that experience, right? Like You can only reveal certain things if there's like very bad thing going on that, like you want to kind of figure out what's going on with this party. I would argue that even actually the bank system, you don't know who is actually kind of money laundering. Here you can actually you can go to a data provider and figure out who's money laundering. That's the beauty of crypto, right? Or you and me can figure out what the money launderer is, which is the most exciting thing that did not exist in traditional finance.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's about power less so than it is about common sense and logic. And there's even maybe by the time this comes out, this law will have already passed. But effectively, the French government is trying to pass a law which would effectively make every single transaction above $1,000 an automatic notification to track, like some kind of traction, right, which is some kind of governing body that oversees transactions and looks for suspicious activity, effectively making every transaction over $1,000 suspicious. So it's sort of a bleak outcome, I think. I'm not super optimistic that we're going in the right direction, but we do need to keep moving the needle and keep fighting for what I think is right, which is transparent systems, permissionless systems where consenting adults are able to engage in commerce and do business together without the state having the final word about whether or not that's possible. But yeah, we're diverging a little bit here.
No,
Yeah.
In general, like it's founders. Like we have this discussion internally. Founders need to be always optimistic in a way, right? Because there's always like some dirt at you at every moment in life, right? It's like something to keep as a founder. You should be optimistic so that everybody's optimistic around you, right? Like that's the up until there's something really bad going on that you need to kind of figure out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my motto, has been the motto, and that's why you take risks more than other people in certain cases. But yeah.
Yeah. So what's on the roadmap, and what can people expect from Nuffle in the next 6 months or a year?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things coming. We have a bunch of announcements that are coming related to the product for Stake from Anywhere. Working on a one big asset that I'm excited hope so that we announce it by this time, that we want to kind of seed liquidity around in crypto. So if you guys want to learn, obviously follow us at Nuffle Labs on Twitter. Follow me on, obviously, Mr. Altan Tutar on Twitter. I'm the main kind of the chief vibe officer for the company, which is great. Where we have chief yapper, which yap has been a great word when we're creating this today. But quite excited. We have a lot of interesting folks in the company too. Jin, who does he's ex-Jin, who does like a lot of AI marketing things on Twitter that gets a lot of attention. And our CTO Frat has been very involved in a lot of AI open source tooling. Like at some point we've been like top 20 or top 30 contributor to AI Skizzy DAO, and everything was like getting integrated to AI Skizzy DAO. That was kind of interesting to see. But overall, yeah, super excited. The timelines, there's a testnet coming up in March that's going to be quite exciting.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on and talking about Nuffle. Very exciting stuff, and excited to start using it at some point and moving my my Dinosaur assets over into DeFi. I must have some Doge somewhere. I still have it on an old wallet, and I'd love to be able to utilize that liquidity, in DeFi. So yeah, thanks again.